Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers, and let me see. Normally I probably would try and stick to vanilla stuff, but I've been playing a bit with this build and repair system, and my thought process was it would be nice to have like a portable build and repair system. So basically a very small, I'm thinking like 2, and then all the supporting ancillary stuff like power, possibly oxygen. So you could basically set this thing down somewhere and actually use it for survival, basic survival. So no refinery or anything like that, but so you could actually, like a tiny miniature shipyard kind of a thing, that it would either help you build or help you dismantle. Okay, so very, very simple, but still something that you could, easily utilize. Here's the thought process. I need power, I need storage, and I need, at the minimum, medical. Okay, that way I can spawn this thing, boom, done. I've got everything that I really need to survive. And what I mean by that is I'm not gonna die because I have my hydrogen and oxygen, and a place where I can replenish my power. If you see on the screen right now, I'm out of power. So I should have fixed that off screen just to save myself the embarrassment, but hey. So why am I going in this direction? Well, you see over here I've got this spawned in thing. This is a 2D ancillary over here, just like I kind of did on the last stream, the last video. I basically hijacked this thing and brought it over here. This is the very center of the universe, which is to say GPS location 000 or thereabouts. And so this is kind of my junkyard. So this was kind of where I was intending to start dismantling everything. Bing. Turn that upright. Alright, so not that there is any proverbial orientation in space. With this in mind, I'm going to spawn these two. I'm going to turn off T because it never does anything correctly as far as I can tell. And make sure these are indeed facing approximately the right way. Kind of hard to tell with these guys. Because are they perfectly symmetrical? Yeah, they are perfectly symmetrical, including the little twisty wires there. Yep, symmetrical. Okay. Alright, what else do we need? Now, as I'm want to do, we're doing Kenty blocks. So this is an elsewhere container, as you can see. I need power, which I'm going to go ahead and put at this other end. I'm going to use I'm going to use a small reactor, no surprise there. It was just kind of how am I going to put anything in here. I am also Control HG Kenty blocks, my stolen medical bay. Can be up there. Alright, and now the only other things that we need on this end are question is, do we want to make this long, or do we do it kind of blocky and have tanks off the side? So for something that's, you know, small like this thing that is a singular purpose type of a block, then it makes it kind of interesting. Okay, so oxygen tank. This oxygen tank, I'm not, so 100,000 liters is the size of the in-game oxygen tank. 100,000 liters. 2.5 million liters is the in-game vanilla hydrogen tank. Okay, so this is my oxygen tank, standard oxygen tank. I do have an OP, but okay, so this is 10 times larger if we look. So this is 3 zeros is 1,000, 3 zeros is 1,000,000. So this is 1 million liters versus the 100,000 of the stock tank. Okay, so this is plenty for anything that I could possibly be doing with this particular unit. So I'm also going to, I'm presuming that, so this is the hydrogen overpowered, which I don't need. That's just total overkill. So modeling. So it says oxygen, but as you can see on the screen there to the right, this is my hydrogen tank. I am not a modeler, so what I need to do eventually is find somebody who will do preferably really cool models and actually have them do tanks for me. That would be really, really cool. I would probably at that point also have them do models for that. Okay. Okay, so strangely, as opposed to my normal Kenti blocks, this is actually the same size as the in-game hydrogen tank. So 000 and 000. So 2.5 million liters, which is the standard size for the in-game tank, hydrogen tank. But it's a 1x1x2 instead of a 3x3x3. So, for what that's worth. So hydrogen tank and oxygen tank. I'm going to go ahead and connect these on the back side. I'm going to use vanilla parts and pieces here just because I could technically do the same thing on this side. In fact, I'm going to either that or I turn this into a total multifunction block, which I think I'm going to do because I just can't resist, and we're going to put in our famous Kenti element extractor. This is a big block, big block, but it's a single block. As you can see here, this is my element, my famous element extractor. So what does the element extractor do? The element extractor takes gravel and extracts trace elements, trace being the key word here. So it makes Refinery. And what does the Mega Mini do? It is a refinery in a 1x1x1 box. And again, I can't do modeling, so I borrowed the cargo container. So it says cargo container on there, as you can see, but not really a cargo container. So element extractor, And Mega Mini Refinery, as you can probably guess by such a name as Mega Mini Refinery, it is a very, very efficient refinery, very power hungry, but totally overpowered. Alright, so what do we need over here? Well, as long as I'm doing overkill, then we'll go ahead and put in another Kenti container, because we can never have too many Kenti containers. And then we're going to put in an oxygen generator. The question is, how do I connect these in? Well, there's an interesting quandary. Turning out to be a bit longer than I wanted, but what else do we need here? We have medical. We have refining. If I really wanted to put like an assembler or something here, but why do that? Well, I do need an antenna. And I need a battery. So, container, battery, and I guess that means the antenna goes right here. So, 8 toolbar, Kenti large antenna, which goes there. Okay, unfortunately this turned into a 2 by 5 by 2 little contraption here, but the only thing this does not have is an assembler, which is good and bad. Obviously you really need an assembler to do what you're doing. However, because it has the build and repair system here, I can extract components, which means I don't really have any way to take components and turn them into something else, because I kind of wanted to keep this thing small. In fact, I already went overkill on it. I really only was looking at kind of a dismantler kind of a thing, but of course I tend to over-engineer just about everything. So if I were really being smart, I would actually put on, instead of the battery over here, I would probably go another row and put an assembler on here, just a basic assembler. Okay, let's go ahead and do that, just because. So there's an assembler, and paycas here, and the cargo teleporter, and we'll tell you a little more about that in a minute. Alright, so assembler, that way we can do basic assembly. Why did that do that? Oh, because it can't attach. Alright, so the good thing here with the assembler is, you see I have these 2 side ports that I can use, and the assembler has an end port. Okay, so in this case, I want to be able to connect all of the cargo paths together. So consider for a moment that, okay, let's look over here. Okay, these two guys, the build and repair system, are connected via their own internal connections, right? So connection, these two guys are connected. This guy is connected to this guy via its 6 bays, right? So this guy is connected to 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 the reactor is connected to the medical. Okay? Problem is, if we talk about things in terms of a planar, I do not have any connections to the other side. Here, let me go through that. So we have these two guys here, which are a 6 port. So these two guys are connected up and down. This is my extractor and my refinery, but you can see I don't have a connection to the medical and I don't have a connection to the refinery, so no connections there. Tanks only have connectors on the end, so these two tanks are connected end to end, but they don't have any other connections. As you can see here, the oxygen generator has connections points on the ends, and in this case on the top and the bottom on the base there, but still no connection over to the other side. So I have to figure out how to do a either 2-way or 3-way connection here into this other piece. And what I'm going to do is use the assembler to do that for me. So we're going to turn it this way, okay, and then paste it up here. What does that do for me? Well, that connects it onto the cargo container on the other side, so at least I have a single connection point between these two layers, and then I'm using the bottom one to connect into that oxygen tank, which means ultimately I have now connected both sides together. Okay, so in my description of the base, for example, in the other video, I talked about making sure you have a completely interconnected conveyor system. So even though I don't have any conveyors per se, I have all these connection points between the different blocks, which I'm trying to create a continuous connection mechanism. So there we go. Now we have an assembler. And what else do we need? Well, for just a moment, I'm going to nuke the antenna here. And the reason for that is I want to put in, oh, that's conveyor sorter. 9. A cargo teleporter. What is a cargo teleporter? A cargo teleporter is a device that teleports cargo. So the idea behind this device is that it will receive cargo from another unit that has a cargo transmitter. So this is going to be a cargo receiver, and that cargo transmitter will transmit to this one, and it will dump that cargo into the container that it's connected to. Now, the way we do this, we get into this. It looks like a sorter. It kind of behaves like a sorter. Okay, so cargo teleporter. In this case, I have to tell it whether it's a receiver or a transmitter, and I use the R or T designator, receiver, transmitter, respectively. So I am receiving from a cargo container called cargo transmit. And on the other side, it would, oh, actually, sorry, it's not receiver, it is from cargo transmit. Okay, so cargo teleporter, transmit cargo, or cargo transmit. So this is the name of the container that I am receiving from. Okay, so from cargo transmit. So at the other end of, and this is limited, this particular version, he has an unlimited version, Paycast, has an unlimited version as well as an RF version. So what do I mean by RF? Radio frequency. Radio frequency versus light. Okay, so these do not work, or did not, I haven't tested recently, do not work with laser antennas. Okay, they only work with RF antennas. Okay, so the other thing I need to do here, which is just standard, is I have to designate, and I use these cargo transmitters in quite a few of my builds, and I have come up with a standardized methodology of how I make these things work. So I'm going to carry on with that. So my receiving container is always called the elsewhere receiver. A before E except after C. E-I-V-E-R, right? R-E-C. Receiver. E-I. Receiver, is that right? So there was a nonsense sentence. C-E-I-V-E-R. I think that's correct. There was a nonsense sentence, and they call it a nonsense sentence because it really doesn't make sense. But it still meets the grammatic structure to qualify as a sentence. And it was a nonsense sentence that lists all of the ones that do not follow the basic grammar rule of I before E except after C. Now, for those of you who've never studied grammar, that probably doesn't make any sense to you. But if you're 40 years or older, you probably remember that when they taught you grammar a long time ago. I before E except after C, a grammar rule that is mostly true. So, here's the sentence. Neither Sheik seized either caffeine nor protein for the weird leisure of the species. Okay, now you're going to play that back like 4 times and try and think, what the hell are you saying? What does that mean? Well, these are all the words that don't follow this I before E thing. Neither Sheik seized either caffeine nor protein for the weird leisure of the species. It might be neither instead of either, because I think they're both the same thing. Yeah. So those are all of the reversed E before I words in the basic English vocabulary that do not conform to the I before E except after C. Alright, having done that and given you your grammar lesson for the day, quiz will be tomorrow. Change these all. I'm not going to rename any of these short of those, just because. Not much point. Okay, so we have a receiver that will dump into there, and the only thing we need now is an antenna. So I'm going to do an antenna like that. Now we have an antenna, and in this case I need to there's my antenna, and this is going to be KTC build and repairs. Oh darn, I hate that. Okay, so you can select, but you can't type anything unless your cursor is in the damn box. Okay, so I don't know who thought that was a great idea, but KTC, Kenty Tiger Clan. This is a build and repair system. What do we call this? Module. How about? We're going to turn the broadcast radius up to 50K. We are going to do a Control A once again and select me. Yes. And we're going to go ahead and change this now that I've claimed ownership. KTC BRS module. And it is a station. Alright, now there's a couple things that we could do that would make this a little bit more flexible as far as the things that we need to do. One of the things I always like to do, and let me see if I can find it. Alright, I'm going to cheat. Collector. I like having a collector on my various builds, and the reason I like collectors, collectors are a very convenient way of taking stuff from the world and putting them into your builds. Now, what is this missing? This is missing a battery. Now, the problem with missing a battery is I don't have any storage. So if I run out of uranium, then I'm pretty much sunk. Here's the other side of that equation: is when a conveyor system does not have power, there is no way to put uranium into a reactor unless you have direct access to its connector. Okay, in this case I don't, because it's going into the medical bay on one side and the build and repair system on the other side. So I have no direct access to this reactor. So the only way I can put uranium into this reactor via any of the other ports is to have power to it. So it's the famous jump start thing. Alright, so I could put uranium into this reactor by any of the ports now that I have power. Okay, now one of the other things that I wanted to do here was set up the drain all function. So you're going to see this looks identical to a conveyor, because it is. It functions exactly like a conveyor, other than it also receives from its counterpart the cargo teleporter transmitter, which would be on the other vehicle in this case. So we have the ability to receive. So we're going to call this elsewhere container 1. This one becomes elsewhere container 2. We're going to do a Control A because I've noticed those are no longer to me. So they're now me. One other thing I want to change is the battery, because this is a battery, not battery 1, even though. And I'm going to call this just element extractor, because OP Mega Mini. In fact, what I do a lot of times is rename and say KMM. That's Kenti Mega Mini. And this is an extractor, and this is a refinery. Okay, now why did I do that? Because it alphabetizes. So let me go out of this and back in, and what do we see? Now we have the extractor and the refinery right next to each other, out of the way. So my OCD is satisfied for the moment. Alright, so here we have, in a basic compact module, most everything we would need in basic survival, which turned out to be a 2 by 2 by 6 module, so a little bigger than I wanted, but I can extract, I can build using the build and repair system. I have medical, I have oxygen and hydrogen, we have ample storage. In fact, if you know anything about my elsewhere containers, they are at the limit of the game, so basically infinite storage. And what I mean by infinite is there's 9 trillion liters in each one of those cargo containers, and there are 3 of those containers on this particular build. We have a collector, so I can just dump things from the game into that collector and it will go into the cargo container there below. We have assembly, we have refining, we have battery, and we have power. So I have reactor power. So we basically have 2 different versions of power that would be helpful. Now, one of the other things that I could do here, and I think I will, just for sake of having done so, is solar power. Where to put these guys? I think we'll just put them around the center. Now, what I do not want to do is block off ports. And what I mean by that is I don't want to I want to make sure that I have a port that I can get to. So there's a port, there's a port, what that freeze was, and there are ports here and here. So sometimes solar panels tend to block the ports. Now, my intention here, why I didn't put a solar panel on the bottom, is because this is up. Okay, so obviously I want to use gravity to force items into this collector, so that's up, which means it's going to be sitting on the bottom, which means theoretically I will never have sun on that side. So that's what that is. Okay, one of the things that I do need to do is do a Control A again, because I just put the solar panels on there, and do the me. Yes. Alright, and I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do this now. So, solar panels. This is solar panel 1, solar panel 2, solar panel 3, and I'm going to create groups because. So this is solar panels, group, take it off the toolbar, containers, so we have a hydrogen tank, an oxygen tank, which we do not need the inventory screen or toolbar config. We have an oxygen generator that also, so the oxygen generator needs to be on toolbar and needs to have inventory, so that one's all good. Medical does not need to be on the toolbar. So let us create, and the collector does not need to be on the toolbar. So let us create, does not need to be on the toolbar, a specialized thing, hydrogen tank, oxygen generator, oxygen tank, and small med bay that is just called systems miscellaneous. Okay, because none of those items that you see on the screen there need to be on the terminal. They do need to be in inventory for some of them. They do need to be available on the toolbar for some of them, but other than those, so created, and we're going to go ahead and turn those off. Now, why did I do that? Because I like having everything on my screen. That's another OCD thing, I admit. So all of these things now on the screen because I've grouped items together. So I have access to my assembler, which is a good thing, but you'll have access to that through production. The BRS is here, and the advantage to having a group here, so BRS blocks, is that what we want to call them? Build and repair systems would be a little bit redundant. Would be kind of funny though. Let's do that, just because. Build and repair systems. Now, why did I build a group? So I'm going to turn that off and off because I want to be able to control all of those together. So by settings changes once, so I want to help others build new, not necessarily. I'm going to go to fly mode, yes. I'm going to go to weld if grind, or grind if weld is stuck. I'm going to use ignore color and configure these consistently with what some of the other folks have done. So this one is 113, and this is use and 100, but 313. Why did I pick that color? I didn't actually. I'm using the same color scheme as what some other YouTube folks that do space engineers, two different ones in fact. It works well. 313 isn't too bad. 113 isn't too bad of a color. 313 is the most hideous hot pink that you could ever possibly see in your life. You'll be scarred forever having seen that color. So, alright, one more check to make sure it's me, and I believe we are approximately where we need to be. What is the only other thing I need to do here? And that would be to put a couple cheating here. Obviously this is non-vanilla, so me cheating here shouldn't bother you at all. I'm using the scripts, the mid-space admin scripts. So uranium ingot, and we're gonna put 2.5 million, if I can count my number of zeros, of uranium into the reactor. You saw that just went green, so that's instant. Basically whatever you put the reticle on and you tell it insert inventory, it will attempt to insert what you tell it to into the block that you are pointed to, if you don't mind my putting a preposition on the end of my sentence. Alright, what's the only other thing I need to do is my oxygen generator here. So we're going to do effectively the same thing, except we're going to put ice in here. Ice. Doesn't like that. Oh, that's because it's a standard. Well, maybe it's not a standard, but either way, let's go out to the end and we'll put ice space. This has been complained about before, is that when you're in your text and you use the arrow keys, it will randomly either move 1 or 2 characters. Obviously you want it to move 1, but cursor will randomly move 2. Why? Because space engineers. Okay. Not sure what's going on there. because that is an oxygen generator, it should be able to... Alright, I'm not sure why that is not allowing me to do that. Alright, this should be an elsewhere container. Yes, it is. So, uranium ingot. There's a 2 for you. Okay, that is 2 million. $10 million. Why did I put 10 million in there? That way I have plenty for whatever. Ice. Doing the same thing here. Could I go and collect unknown item? What the hell? Oh. Maybe an E instead of a C, perhaps. I-C-E. Try that. There we go. Okay, now if I look in here, I should see... Yep. So we've taken some uranium in. We have not taken any ice in at all, so I'm not sure why that is. Unless this is entirely full. Oxygen generator. Yeah, basically it was. Which is fine. So it's filling up these tanks, which is a good thing. Alright, so this thing is pretty much all set. So the only thing I need to do now is finish the build and repair system. Help others build new. This is if you're using projectors. This can get you into as much trouble as it can save you energy. Fly mode. Walk mode versus fly mode. Walk is anything that's attached to the grid, and fly is anything within the radius, or rather the square box. Grind first if weld is stuck, otherwise we do welding. Ignore color and grind color. Grinds enemy blocks. Grinds blocks not owned, which means not the nobody blocks, but not owned, which means all those blocks that cannot have an inherent ownership. Grinds neutral blocks. Now the problem with this is if you happen to be friends with a faction, then this could create some problems. Settings enabled, I believe, is all these things down here. Collect only if idle, which is not necessarily the case. Push ore immediately, shove it out. Show area. This is like your display on HUD. And area width. You can see there's 75. Control, or 75 meters. I'm going to do this at 15%. It used to be really loud. Okay, control by script, I leave that unchecked because I wouldn't know how to configure that anyway. Alright, so having done all that, we're going to do one more control A, make sure that we are a me, check over my info one more time. Control panel, I do have my antenna, should be, where is my antenna? There it is. Which should be the same as what I've got there, yes indeed. So, I am going to back off just a little bit. Get a side view here, and then we're going to take a snapshot of this thing. So control B, we should see that show up, yes indeed, in my here. Alright, and then the next thing we do is I'm gonna take this off, put it right here, really close to the junkyard. say theoretically it should be dismantling the ship over here, and why isn't it? Okay, troubleshooting in progress. Oh, because they're turned off. How about if I turn them on? There we go. Alright, so having done that, we have a Class 5I cruiser. So, okay, that's me. Biggest grids. There's our cruiser. Using Space Master, I'm going to stop it. I can't depower. Don't know why. That doesn't work anymore. Depower. I'm going to teleport here. Layer control. I'm going to manually depower this. And the way I'm going to do that, this is kind of a neat looking craft. Trying to get out of the sun so we can actually see what this looks like. Thruster's up there in the front. I'm not sure why it's not shooting at me. So not a bad looking cruiser here. Admin space commands off. Bing. What does that do? Well, that turns off what you're pointed at. So it secures everything. In this case, there were 3 reactors and 0 batteries turned off, so no batteries on this craft. Not a very intelligent engineering choice. Alright, Control X because I have Space Master turned on. Teleport, TP to 000, which is right next to where I've got stuff stored. And why I don't have any, there. That's the challenge of UHD is you have very, very small text on your screen. Okay, B. Moving my junkyard close here. There we go. Okay. Okay, it did catch it. I was thinking I was going to go have to chase that missile thing down. Okay, at least those gyros are coming out in a good direction. Because these are moving, I'll go ahead and help a little bit. Oh, can't. Oops. Exactly why I have a medical bay, right? Charge myself back up because I'm an idiot. Keep forgetting to add some power here. Those are still all close enough that they wouldn't necessarily be an issue, but alright, so let's go ahead and run after these. These might actually be out of range now. that's the downside of just having the two of them. They work very, very well, but only two of them. And what I mean by two of them is the build and repair system. For those of you who saw the other video where I literally had 100 of them, and you could see how amazingly fast it disassembled everything. Comparatively, the two appears to be a bit slow. Where did that other gyro go? There it is. Oh! Too much acceleration, too little deceleration. Oops. Can't tell if it's still doing. I'm guessing it is. No reason I can't help. Yeah, I see things still disappearing off. Off of here. I'm helping because gives me something to do, right? Stand around, let all the automation do everything for you, and you just get lazy, right? Well, I'm lazy anyway, but hey, that's why we have all the tools we have, right? The tools allow us to be more and more lazy. Couldn't be better than that. Not sure why that one was a different color. That's kind of bizarre. Disappear. Do that first, and then do the door, which doors take a long, long time. We have two doors here. You just go through the piece that you know is not going to be much. So why do I use a proficient grinder instead of an elite grinder? When you have the settings turned up, so the maximum grind speed, an elite grinder will actually take things down so fast. So for example, if I wanted to just hack this thing, then it would just go zoom down so fast that you might actually completely disassemble this thing before you hacked it, because you couldn't get your finger off the mouse button soon enough. So I've learned over time to use a proficient grinder rather than an elite grinder. Oh darn, I guess I didn't want to do that. I hack and weld? Well, I want that. That's why. Oh, okay, and I'm making my problem worse here. Thankfully, they're moving very slowly. So I've gone from engineer to yard worker. No slur or slam intended on yard workers. Actually, I've been there, done that. Oh, this was all. Alright, so here we go. Hack, weld, because I want the uranium. There's my uranium. Back to take that away. Alright. Let's focus on this again. Be out of power very shortly. There we go. All done. Alright. Back up here to my medical bay and get more power. And while I'm here, I might as well unload all my stuff. Hey, there's an unknown signal. Alright, first, large grid, next, another one of these guys, so, stop, teleport, teleport to 0. My piece is moving away here, so let us Control V. We'll paste this guy in semi-close. That will be the next thing to dismantle. There we go. Teleport, player control, and we gotta figure out where the little button is. There's the little button. Beep. See what happens. Oh, rainbow grinder. And X. Teleport back to world here. And why do I do this? Well, parts is parts, right? Parts. You Dismantling of parts. All parts are parts, so I'm gonna save them all. So is it a bit silly to cheat, but not cheat? Perhaps. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm roaming around in the universe with Space Master turned on, grabbing things, space piracy, and yet I'm dismantling things. Couldn't I just as easily cheat and get all the pieces by cheating? Yes, I could. But we're not. What do we have here? So this is the last of the original one here. Slowly moving away. I think that's all that one. Some parts running away over there. Go after these parts. So, what have we accomplished? We have put together our, dare I say, survival module. Has everything we need to survive. in a very compact form. So I have power, which unfortunately I'm hiding behind the sun, or hiding behind the shadow of this thing, so not really very helpful at this point. I've got battery, I've got an antenna so I can find it, I've got ample storage, I have convenience mechanisms like this collector, we have oxygen, we have medical, we have power in now all three forms. We have refining capability, we have assembly capability, we have oxygen and hydrogen so we can refill our suit. In fact, speaking of, okay, so having those mechanisms is always a good thing. So in other words, this module here, a little survival module, is everything we need to survive. Okay, so is it overkill? Certainly. Is that a form of cheating? Well, I guess it depends on what you consider cheating. If the game lets you do things and you have fun doing it, then I don't think it's cheating. After all, this is, in this particular mode, is a single player mode. If I were to, you know, have a server out in the world and be running a dedicated server or something with multiple people out there, then obviously that would be a little different equation. Obviously discussing with all the different users of that particular world what we would have as far as mods go and what we don't would be pretty important. So in my case, I'm doing solo, so is there any harm in it? Don't know. Again, it's really about your own preference on what is cheating and what is not. I really don't look at it as cheating or not cheating. I look at it as having fun or not having fun, or maybe having fun or having less fun. As my point of playing these games is to have fun, then my definition of fun supersedes other definitions of fun. So I'm having fun. That's what matters. So we built our little module here, which has been successful in the test of functionality. So our proof of concept test is indeed proved. Oh, that's got a big hole in it. Wow. My goodness. So proof of concept complete. We have our little survival module here, our center of the universe. So with that, this is Kenty Tiger signing off, and we will see you next time.